Alright gang, today we are going to learn how to solve our square root equations. So, here we go. So the inverse operation of taking the square root is to square it. So what we're going to do when I have a square root, I'm going to do the inverse of that. Well, the inverse of that is to square it, or to take it to the second power. Because the square root, the radical, is equal to raising something to the 1/2 power. Those mean the same thing. Okay, so when I square this, when I take 1/2 and I multiply it by 2, those cancel out and I'm left with whatever is right here. So that's the inverse of the square root. Taking the square root of a number will never result in a negative number. So with these two things in mind, let's rock and roll. Step number 1, we're going to isolate the radical. Okay, so and then step number 2, I'm going to square both sides so that I can get rid of my square root symbol. Step number 3, I'm going to solve for the remaining variable, in this case would be x. And then step number 4, I need to make sure that those solutions are actual solutions and not imaginary numbers. Here we go, number 1. Again, step number 1, isolate the radical, it is. Step number 2 is to square both sides. So this and this cancel out, I'm left with x plus 6. I've got 4 squared over here, 4 squared is 16. Now what I need to do is I need to subtract 6 on both sides. I get x equals 10. Alright, now I need to make sure that this is an actual solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to plug it in. So I've got the square root of 10 plus 6 equals 4. Square root of 16 is in fact 4. So this is an actual solution. Okay, go into number 2. I need to isolate the square root, so I need to get rid of this plus 3 first. I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. I've got the square root of x minus 2 is equal to 1. Now I have that square root isolated for. I'm going to square both sides, so I've got x minus 2 equals 1 squared, which is 1. I'm going to find what x is, so x equals 3. Again, I need to take it and I need to plug it in, so I've got the square root of 3 minus 2 plus 3 equals 4. The square root of 3 minus 2 is 1, so the square root of 1 plus 3 equals 4. Well, 1 plus 3 does in fact equal 4. Looking at number 3. Square root is isolated for, so I'm going to square both sides. I've got 4x equals negative 2 squared. Alright, negative 2 squared is going to give me a positive 4. Now again, we have 4x equals negative 2 squared is positive 4, so 4x equals 4, x equals 1. Now let's check to see if it's a solution. So I've got the square root of 4 times 1 equals negative 2. Square root of 4 is positive 2. So does positive 2 equal negative 2? No, so this is not a solution. So there is no solution. Okay, this is a solution, but this is an extraneous solution. Alright, same thing, looking at number 4, I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides. So I've got the square root of 3x plus 3 equals negative 6. Now I need to take the square on both sides, so I've got 3x plus 3 equals positive 36, because the negative 6 squared is positive 36. I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. I've got 3x equals 33, so x equals 11. Now once again, check to see if it's a solution. So I've got 3 times 11 plus 3 plus 1 equals negative 5. So I've got 33 plus 3 is the square root of 36 plus 1 equals 5. So square root of 36 is 6. So 6 plus 1 does not equal 5. No solution. Alright, let's look at one with a fraction. I'm going to go down to number 5. First step, isolate. Add 6 to both sides. That goes away. You got 0 equals square root of 1/2 x minus 5. Now I need to square both sides. Well, when you square a 0, you still get 0. So I've got 1/2 x minus 5. Now I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So 1/2 x equals positive 5. So x equals 10, because I'm going to multiply by 2 to get rid of my 1/2. Now check to see if it's a solution. So I'm going to do the square root of 1/2 times 10 minus 5 minus 6 equals negative 6. 1/2 of 10 is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. So the square root of 0 is 0. So does negative 6 equal negative 6? You betcha. Alright, going to the next page. Looking at number 7. Now I have a coefficient in front. no biggie. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that coefficient first, so let's divide by 3 on both sides. So the square root of x equals 3. Next step, square both sides, x equals 9. Now once again we want to check to make sure it is a soluzione. So the square root of 9 equals 9. So 3 times the square root of 9, well the square root of 9 is 3, so 3 times 3 does in fact equal 9. Number 9, I have a negative there. Okay, no biggie. I'm going to divide by a negative 3. 9 divided by negative 3 is a negative 3. So now I'm going to square both sides. X minus 7 equals positive 9 because negative 3 squared is positive. Add 7 to both sides. X equals 16. Now once again, let's check to see if it's a solution. So negative 3, 16 minus 7 equals 9. Made that square root a little bit too big. Negative 3 times the square root of 16 minus 7 is 9, equals 9. Square root of 9 is 3, so negative 3 times 3 is a negative 9. Does that equal positive 9? Absolutely not, so there is no solution. Alright, now, we're going to look at a variable on both sides. Okay, so when there's an x on both sides. So again, the same process is going to apply. I'm going to square both sides. We'll make sure that it's by itself first. Make sure the square root is by itself first. I'm going to square both sides. Write the quadratic in standard form because I'm going to have to try to factor out or solve any way possible. Let's look at example number 1. We're going to square both sides. Bam, bam. That cancels out. I've got 4x equals x squared. Now, next step, I want to get the x's on the same side so that I can solve for my x. So I'm going to subtract 4x on both sides. X squared minus 4x equals 0. I'm going to factor out an x because that's the GCF here. So x minus 4 equals 0. So I'm going to set x equal to 0. I'm going to set x minus 4 equal to 0. So I get x equals 0 and positive 4. Now let's check to see if those are both solutions. So here we go. Plug it in. So I've got 4 times 0 equals 0. Square root of 0 is 0, so 0 equals 0. That is a solution. I plug in 4 also, so I've got the square root of 16 equals 4. Well, the square root of 16 is 4. Does 4 equal 4? You betcha. So both of those are solutions. Looking at number 2. Same thing. Let's square both sides. I've got negative 2x equals x squared. I'm going to get those together, so I'm going to add 2x to both sides. So I've got x squared plus 2x equals 0. Now I'm going to factor out the GCF. Set this equal to 0. That's a factor. Set this equal to 0. Now let's make sure that those are both solutions. So the square root of negative 2 times 0 equals 0. The square root of 0 is 0, so 0 equals 0. You betcha. Square root of negative 2 times negative 2 equals negative 2. The square root of positive 4 is positive 2. Does that equal negative 2? No, it does not. So this is my solution, x equals 0. X equals negative 2 is what we call an extraneous solution. Moving right along, peeps. Let's look at number 5 because I know you hate fractions. So the first step, square both sides. Bam, 2/3 x equals 4x squared. How did I get the 4? What I did is I take this and square it, and take that and square it. Because this is saying 2x times 2x. Alright, now I'm going to multiply by 3 halves on both sides. Okay, multiply by 3 halves on both sides. Okay, or you can just say this is times 3. So you've got 2x equals 12x squared. Okay, now I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. That goes away. I've got 12x squared minus 2x equals 0. Now I'm going to factor out the GCF, so I see an x in both, I see a 2 in both. So the GCF is 2x, I'm left with 6x minus 1 equals 0. Set this equal to 0, so x equals 0. Set this equal to 0, so 6x minus 1 equals 0. Add 1 to both sides. 6x equals 1, so x equals 1/6. So my two solutions are 0 and 1/6. Now once again we want to check to make sure those are both solutions. So we'll plug in 0. 2/3 times 0 is 0 equals 2 times 0, so the 0 equals 0. You betcha. Now let's plug in 1/6, so we've got the square root of 2/3 times 1/6 equals 2 times 1/6. On the top I've got 2 times 1, that's positive 2. On the bottom I've got 18. Okay, so on the top I've got 2, on the bottom I've got 18. Over here I've got 2 over 6. Okay, this can reduce to 1 over 9, so I've got the square root of 1 over 9 equals 1 over 3. I can reduce that also. Taking the square root of the top, take the square root of the bottom. So the square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 9 is 3. Does 1/3 equal 1/3? You betcha. So they are both solutions. They're both solutions. Alright, let's go to number 7. Sure. Okay. Now, again, what I want to do is I want to get rid of my 1/2. Okay, this is a square root sign. So the way I do that is I square both sides. Bam. That goes away. You're left with 1/2 x. Square this side, you get 4x squared. So you get 4x squared equals 1/2 x. Now I want to get the x by itself, so I'm going to multiply it by 2 and make it easy to work with. So that 1/2 and that multiplied by 2 cancels out. I've got x equals 8x squared. So 8x squared minus x equals 0. Factor out my GCF. Now I solve for x, so x equals 0. And x equals 1/8. Now we want to again check to see if they are both solutions. You plug in 0, you get 0 times 0 here. You plug in 0, you get 0. So we know that 0 is a solution. Now let's check 2. So 2 times 1/8 equals 1/2 times 1/8 times raised to the power of 1/2, or the square root. So over here we've got 1 over 4. Here we've got 1 over 16. That's the square root. Well, the square root at the top here, square root of 1 is 1. On the bottom, square root of 16 is 4. So yes, that is a solution. Alright, now once again, let's go to number 9. Okay, I've got an x in front. Guess what? No big deal. We're going to square both sides. Let's get rid of our square roots. So I've got negative 5x over here. Over here I've got x squared times 10. Okay, let's rewrite this and make it look like what we normally see. Let's get let's get the 5x on the other side so we can get it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 5x to both sides. So I've got 10x squared plus 5x, and that equals 0. Oh my goodness, let's factor out our GCF, which would be 5x. So you've got 2x plus 1. So we know that x is equal to 0. We also know that x is equal to 1/2. Now let's check to see if these puppies are solutions. So we know 0 equals 0. So we know that that is a solution. We also know that square root of negative 5 times 1/2 is equal to 1/2 times the square root of 10. So over here we've got the square root of negative 5/2 is equal to 1/2 square root of 10. No, that's not a solution. So this is not a solution. So we know that x equals 0 is my real solution. Let's look at number 10, last one. Okay, number 10. First step. Okay, first step. Again, we want to add 2x to both sides. So now I've got the square root of 3x equals 2x. Now we can get rid of this square root. The way I get rid of a square root is to square it. So you're left with 3x here. Over here you've got 2 squared, which is 4x squared. Now let's move our 3x to the other side so we can get a 0 on one side. So 4x squared minus 3x. Let's factor out our x. So 4x minus 3. Factoring out our GCF. So we know that that is equal to 0. So x equals 0. And x equals 3/4. Now once again, let's check it. 0 minus 2 times 0 is 0. So 0 equals 0. You betcha. We also got the square root of 3 times 3/4 minus 2 times 3/4 equals 0. Alright, so on the top we've got 9 over 4. Over here we've got 6 over 4, and that equals 0. Alright, so the square root of 9 over 4 is the square root of 9, which is 3, the square root of 4, which is 2. Over here we've got that reduces to 3/2. My goodness. Yes, it's a solution. Bada bing, bada boom, peeps.